All right, guys, today we are going to start part two of We Are Not From Here. We've already finished part one. We finished part one yesterday. And now today we're starting part two. If you look, it's on your page 111, and it says part two, Donde vive la bestia, and it translates into Where the Beast Lives. So we're going to pick up reading today on page 113, and we're going to read all the way to page 134. So I would suggest that you kind of go back and refresh your memory on where we left Bolga and Chico and Pequeña, what they were doing, what they looked like, where they were headed to. So I'm going to pick up reading on page 113, and we have Pequeña narrating this chapter. Outside the bus window, Barrios rushes by in a blur. The restaurant Mommy and I always rode to with Tia and Bolga. The church where Mommy and Poppy got married. The clinic Mommy ran to where the doctor uttered that horrible truth I already knew. That truth that fluttered in my stomach. That started the day I lifted my head and fixed my gaze on the horizon even though Mommy had warned me so many times not to. You have to walk with your head down, Pequeña. Don't look around. She told me ever since my breast started to develop and my hips started to fill out. And be more aware of everything and everyone. She never explained how it was possible to be more aware of everything, take notice of everything, while keeping my gaze down. I listened to her. I always listened to Mommy. I didn't want to make things more difficult for her after Poppy left, when she had to take the job housekeeping at the resort where Tia waitressed. But that day, when my neck ached from being curved downward all the time, from the vision of feet and dust and rocks, that day, I looked up and I let the sun kiss my face and I dreamed of a future away from here. It was the wrong moment for dreams. But it was as if it were destined, as if some invisible hand would have forced my face up, even if I hadn't at that precise moment thought to lift it. There he was, leaning on the counter of Don Felicio's store with a few other guys, drinking soda, laughing, smoking a cigarette. He blew out a long puff of smoke from a cigarette at the exact moment I looked up, and his gaze caught mine through the haze. I heard my mother's voice in that moment, Pequeña! And I looked down immediately. I quickened my pace, from the whoops from his friends and the sound of his feet came toward me anyway. Hey, he called. I walked faster. Come on, don't make me like an asshole in front of my friends. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Hey, he said again. And then he was right behind me. Come on, slow down. Then next to me. Hey, I said slow down. He grabbed my wrist, squeezed it tight, pulled me to a stop. I'll walk with you. This is what happens when you're scared. Your heart takes over your whole body. It thunders in your chest, beating so rapidly that you feel it in your throat and ears and eyes and head. You hear it and feel it on the verge of explosion. And then it does. It explodes. You see a splattering. You wonder how you can still be alive when your heart has exploded. You wonder how you can speak. What's your name? He said, his voice sweet and full of danger. Maria, I lied. He laughed. No, that's not right. Your name is Bonita. He nodded and looked me up and down. Yes, Bonita, he repeated, then reached up and touched my chin, lifted my face to his. This is what danger looks like. A smile set in a long face, revealing the slight overlapping of two front teeth, hairs that cover his eyes, but not completely. So you still see a strange kind of vacancy in them, and a smile that is quickly replaced with a sneer. Don't get lost on me, he said, shaking a finger. I'll be looking for you. He stopped. He laughed, and I kept on. After that, he found me wherever I went. He didn't care that I wasn't interested. I think he actually liked it at first, the idea of making me do something, of making me love him. He bought me gifts and insisted I take them. He told me he loved me, even as he grabbed my face with his dirty hands, dug his fingers into my cheeks, and forced me to look at him. He told me his name was Ray, and I was his Bonita. He was a king, and I was his pretty girl. I was his. That's what he said. And one night, while Mommy slept on the living room couch the way she did sometimes when she came home too exhausted from work, he made sure I understand what that meant. Shh, he said as he climbed into the bedroom window. I just showered. I just put on my nightgown. He'd been out there for who knows how long watching me. Shh, as he put his finger to my lips and laughed at the look on my face, at how I froze. I could have screamed. My mother would have come running into that room where Ray stood, staring at me with vacant eyes. My mother's in the other room, I said. It doesn't matter, he said. Go ahead, invite her too. He laughed and I panicked, thinking Mommy would come in, not knowing what she was walking into. So when he came toward me and he held me by the back of the hair, kissing me and leading me to the bed, I didn't fight. Anything to keep him quiet, anything to keep Mommy away. He told me not to make a sound, not to dare make a sound, or he'd kill me. And as soon as Mommy made it into my room, he'd kill her too. And just in case I doubted him, he showed me the gun he carried in his waistband. Ray whispered in my ear, but I shut my eyes tight, silently screaming for help as he pressed himself against me, as his hands slid up my legs under my nightgown. I lay still, very still, and I was so quiet. I hardly breathed, and for a little while, I died. This is what dying is like. You stare at the ceiling and watch it bend, like the very air in your room can't be contained and is pressing against it. You watch cracks appear and the ceiling break up into a black, black sky and gleaming moon. And you rise. You float up to the ceiling, through the roof, and into the night. That's when I saw her again, La Bruja, the horrible angel from the river, from my childhood, who saved me. I'd forgotten about her after so many years, forgotten how she'd come to me in the water and how I told Mommy and Poppy of her. They'd said I just hit my head and that I was seeing things. Now here she was again, with long silver hair and glimmering eyes, suspended there, waiting for me. I looked back toward the earth, toward my house, that from there looked small and insignificant. And for a moment, I saw us all. Mommy on the couch, curled up so small. Me on that bed, under Ray. The Bruja slunk down to my house, pulling me with her like a magnet. I felt my flesh scraping the rusty edges of the roof of our house, and then I slunk through the ceiling and back onto my bed, back under Ray. And then he rose off me, stood next to the bed as if in a trance. And there she appeared behind him. I watched as she grazed his arm. I watched as it began to tremble. She held a finger to her lips and circled him, studied him, ran her long, thin fingers across his back and shoulders. She leaned toward his ear, whispered something that caused him to stumble again, and then she came around the front and leaned toward his stomach. She kissed his belly button with wrinkly lips that a moment later clasped onto him like a leech. I watched as his knees went weak. A draining look came over his face. I watched as he stumbled out the window, telling me he'd find me again. I got up slowly and closed it, watched him as he stumbled into the darkness. When I turned back around, the old woman was gone. I wondered if she would chase after him in the black night. I wondered if she'd made him go away forever, if he'd be dead by morning. I hoped I would never see him again, but he kept finding me. Pequeña? I hear someone call my name, but I don't want to be Pequeña anymore. Pequeña? My eyes flutter open to the dimness of the early morning light. I'm on the bus. Bolga is next to me, whispering my name. What's wrong? I ask him. They know by now, he says, looking out the window as if he can see our mothers there, desperate and heartbroken, angry and scared. They have each other, I whisper, and they're strong. They can take care of themselves. I swallow up emotions threatening to overcome me as I think of Mommy, of her waking the baby in her arms as she goes to the couch to wake me, as she stares in horror at the things I've left for her there. The gold earrings I've worn since I was a little girl, the long ponytail of hair I left for her to sell, and the note with that words Pequeña will ever write, explaining that I'm gone. I will shed the girl I was, the girl who lived there, until I am someone new. Volga sighs. Do you think... Don't, I say. We can't do this. We made the decision, and now we just have to keep going. They'd forgive us, Chico says, a hopeful look on his face when he sees Bolga second-guessing. We can still go back. A conflicted look crosses Bolga's face. I shake my head. No, I say, we can't go back. Not ever. Bolga looks at me and nods. His dark brown eyes are scared but trusting. And for a moment, I remember us small. When we used to play together while Mommy and Tia Consuelo had coffee and whispered and laughed together on the patio and watched us chase the lizards and iguanas in the middle of the day. Don't worry, I say. He gives me a weak smile and we fall silent. There's nothing more to say. So I close my eyes as the bus rocks back and forth, dips and swerves. I close my eyes and open them again. Never sure if I've fallen asleep. Over and over this happens as I picture us getting farther and farther away from Barrios, from Ray, from the pieces of me in my mother's arms and on the couch that I leave behind, from the future that would have been if we didn't leave. Bolga. 6 hours after leaving Barrios, the bus hisses and brakes into Guatemala City, La Tigua station. I breathe a quick prayer of thanks and hope God hasn't forgotten me. Chico, Pequeña, and I stumble out of the bus groggy from the ride into the bright mid-morning of Guatemala City. Where do we go now? Pequeña asks. Another bus to Tecun, The station for that one is a couple blocks from here. I show her the map I printed from school, hoping it's still accurate. I thought Guatemala City had palace-sized buildings, Chico says, looking at graffiti and rundown storefronts as we head to the other station. It does. I remember from when I used to come with Mommy to try to get visas to visit my father's family in the United States. I tell him, just must not be this part. Most of it looks like Barrios. The station is up ahead, and when we go in, we're immediately greeted and tempted by the smell of food. My stomach lets out a groan, but we focus first on finding the schedule and heading out on the next bus to Tecun. It leaves in an hour. That'll get us there around 6, I tell them. Then we cross the Suchiate River and make it to Mexico by 6 or 7, and there will still be sunlight. But not for long, Pequeña says. What do we do after that? Where do we stay tonight? I think we should be able to catch a taxi or minibus right on the other side to take us to a shelter in Tapachula. We'll sleep there tonight. I try to sound confident, but now that we're here, now that this is actually happening, I'm not too sure of anything. Chico glances between the two of us, a nervous look on his face. I know we have to do this, but I just don't know if I can. You can, I say, grabbing him by the shoulders, trying to convince him, trying to convince us both. Listen to me, Chiquito, Pequena says, turning him toward her. We can never go back. Our mothers know. Everyone knows. Ray knows, she says. At the mention of Ray's name, I look at Pequena, wondering if Chico's blabbed about the things Ray made us do. But the look on his face lets me know he didn't. How'd you know we're running for him? Chico asks her. He looks between the two of us. Pequena looks at us and shakes her head. Never mind. All I'm saying is we can't go back. I won't. She's right, of course. He'll kill us if we go back. But Pequena's words hang ominously in the air, mixing with the smell of food from just moments ago. Now those words and the food and the smell of exhaust and diesel makes my stomach turn. But we need to eat because who knows when our next meal will come. Let's grab some food, I say, breaking the silence between us and trying to forget about the danger we leave behind, the danger that lies ahead. I point to a stand where a woman stands fanning herself and waiting for customers. We buy warm tortillas from her and some chicharrones that look so good and crispy, a few bags of chips, 3 grape sodas, and 2 bags of candy Chico picks out. Soon enough, it's time to get on the bus, and we settle in for the 6-hour trip. The bus pulls away, and I unpack the food for us to share. I bag down on a warm, salty piece of pork wrapped in a piece of soft tortilla. It tastes so good that for a moment, everything feels okay. I look at Chico, who smiles at me with greasy lips and takes a gulp of his soda. Pequena crunches on some plantain chips, and for a moment, it almost feels like an adventure. For a moment, my stomach flutters with anticipation, I think, but maybe it's just fear. For a moment, I think of it happening, of us making it, and it seems so possible. The tires whir. We bounce over the occasional pothole, and with our stomachs full, we are lulled into a quiet tranquility. Chico falls asleep. Pequena stares out the window. I look at her, so different with her hair cut short like that. At a glance, she looks like a stranger. But then she's Pequena again. Pequena I've always known. The same outline of her face, the same slip of her nose and short eyelashes, the same look in her eyes that reminds me of that day on the patio when she told me we had to leave. The same as they looked in the clinic the day she fell off the bus. The same as they looked when Chico and I got to her house with bus tickets. Something wants to break through in my thoughts, but she turns to me suddenly and her dark brown eyes search mine. We'll make it, won't we, Bolga? The grease from the chicharrones is thick on my tongue. Of course, I tell her, searching for something I know is right there, but she looks away. I open my grape soda and take a long sip. It fills my mouth, and I remember being in the back room of Don Felicio's store with Chico, of holding grape sodas in my hand as he was killed. I swallow the food that's bubbled up in my throat and force myself to finish the rest of the soda because we can't afford to waste it. And I fall asleep, the artificial taste of grapes, of animal, and death in my mouth. I wake up to the same taste, now stale, as the bus pulls into the station and we get off. A sense of deja vu comes over me as we walk into the thick heat of the day and into the streets of Tecumumán, where people rush back and forth all around us. We need to head to El Rio Suchate, I tell Chico and Pequena. An old man, frail and leathery, sits on a half wall made of rocks in a small park near the town square. He startles as we come closer to him and stares at me carefully as I ask him for directions to the river. He points in the direction everyone seems to be going and coming, and nods. See, El Rio, he says, as people walk and bike and zoom past us. Women with large baskets and people on bicycle rickshaws rush past too. I look up at the sky, at the way the sun has dimmed in just a few minutes. Come on, I urge Chico and Pequena. We want to cross the river and find a way to the shelter on the other side before dark. We head in the direction the old man pointed, and I keep looking up at the sky, wondering how much time we have. What do you think they're doing right now? Chico says. Who? I ask, walking faster. We need at least 1 hour, but I'm still not sure we'll be able to cross the river as easily as everyone makes it seem. What if it takes longer? Our mothers, Pequena whispers. I have to focus, but with Chico's question, my mind is thrown back to Puerto Barrios, to Mama on our red velvet couch, Tia next to her, crying and holding Pequena's baby. Mama is probably thinking of promises I made her, all those promises, and wondering how I could break them. Maybe Donna Augustina and the neighborhood women are there, too, comforting them. Maybe Donna Augustina is telling them about her vision. Or is she staying quiet, keeping our secret? A bicycle honks loudly at me when we move out of its way. Think they'll come looking for us? Chico asks, looking back in the direction of the bus station, as if Mama and Tia might come running out of there, break through the crowd, and find us right at this very moment. I shake my head. I don't know, Chico. We can't think about that now. Let's just focus on getting you to the shelter, okay? I just feel terrible, he says. Your Mama will never forgive me. He grabs onto the straps of his backpack, staring down at the ground. I don't answer him. I just want him to be quiet, to stop reminding me of Mama. We followed the crowd toward an embankment farther up the way, where the rafts I'd heard so much about from the men at Don Felicio's store come into view. Wooden planks attached to huge black tires, carrying people and packages back and forth across the water, guided by men or boys. We hurried to one of the guides, a guy who looks no older or bigger than me, and we asked him to take the three of us across. He tells us to climb on and then begins to push away from the rocky shore with a long pole. You're lucky, the boy says as he slowly pushes us along past some empty rafts. It's not as busy now as this afternoon. Usually I have at least 20 people on this thing. You guys aren't visiting for the day, he says, glancing up at the sky then our backpacks. Nah, Chico whispers. We're heading to La Bestia, he says this loudly, too loudly, and then takes a deep breath like he has to steady himself. Or like saying it aloud is the only way he can go through with it. Pequena glances over at me, and I make a quick note to tell Chico not to go around blurting out our plans to anyone. La Bestia? Really? Wow, he says as he pushes the long rod into the water. My cousin tried getting to the States that way. He shakes his head. Pero le fue muy mal. If I tell you how bad it went for him, you turn around right now. He laughs, but a brick forms in the pit of my stomach. You see? Chico says, his voice full of worry again. We should turn around. Don't tell us then, I say to the guy, because we're going to make it. I turn my eyes away from the shore on the other side for a moment and look at Chico. We're going to make it, I tell him. He nods as a hot breeze blows. Mexico. We're almost one step closer. All I have to do is stay focused on what's ahead. Get from one moment to the next. Of course you are, the guy says, pushing the pole into the water. Is he alive, your cousin? Chico asks. The boy's quiet for a moment as he raises the long pole and gives another steady push. Oh yeah, he's alive, he says. He's alive. I keep my eyes on the shore. I won't look at him to see if he's lying. Even if he is, it doesn't matter. Listen, he says. Then say when you're running to get on, you need to put your leg closest to the train at first. That way you don't get pulled under it, because that thing is powerful, you know? If it doesn't eat you alive, it takes your soul. That's what I've heard anyway. The words of the guys outside Don Felicio's store echo in my memory. Man, it's hellish. Like El Diablo himself is sucking at your feet, trying to pull you down into that inferno. I look at Chico, so anxious I wish the guy would stop talking already. As we approach the banks of Mexico, the quiet of the river is replaced with the loud sounds of commerce. Here we are, he says, and slowly guides us in. Thanks, man, Chico says, and the guy holds out his hand and they slap each other five like old friends. Hey, you seem to know enough about it. Why don't you come with us? You can drive cars in the United States instead of rafts here. I know he's joking, but I know part of him isn't. The guy laughs, and for a moment his eyes light up. He looks back at the river and shakes his head. Nah, brother, those dreams aren't for me. But good luck to all of you. Que Dios los guarde, he says. We pay him, and he salutes us like we're soldiers as we get off. A few people board his raft, and we watch as he pushes away, floats back to the other side. Chico looks like he might be sick as he watches them go. Where are the taxis and minibuses? Pequena asks me. Probably down by the road, I tell her, heading toward the streets. So you die to Hidalgo. But as we walk down the dirt path, out onto the main road, I don't see anything but a few people on motor scooters. Let's keep walking, I tell them. I'm sure we'll come across one soon. Are you sure they drive by here? Chico asks. The uncertainty I felt before intensifies. I gathered as much information as I could, but now that those places that were once just dots on a map are real, it's hard to make sense of it all. I pushed down my worry, swallowed the panic rising in my throat. Yeah, of course, I say, as I keep walking into the unknown. A woman rides by on a bike and I call out to her, but she goes around and past me without a second glance. I'm pretty sure, I tell him. I try not to think of how we must look wandering around, of who might already be targeting us. Are we going the right way? Chico asks. I don't know, I say. We just need to find a taxi. It's getting late, Chico says. It's okay, I tell him, but even I can hear the panic in my own voice. The sky is darkening and night is falling faster than I expected. An eerie silence began to set in, just like it does back in Barrios, as everyone heads home. As doors are shut closed and wooden bars are set in place. We continue down a mostly empty road looking around for a bus, a taxi, someone who doesn't rush past us when we call out to them, but there are no vehicles and less people. This doesn't feel right, Chico whispers, crowding closer to me and Pequena. Chico's right, this isn't safe, Polka, she whispers. We can't just walk around like this. I know, I tell her. Let's just keep going this way. But do you know where we're going? Where we're headed to? Pequena asks, an edge to her voice that heightens my fear and irritation. Just keep walking, I tell them both, trying to wish a bus or taxi into existence. There are parts of this trip you can't figure out. There are stretches of it you can't plan for. There are parts of it that you travel only on hope. But how can we be at that point already? How can we be so lost already? Soon it's really dark, and the night feels dangerous, and Pequena and Chico are looking to me for answers. But I don't know. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't know why I thought I could do this. I don't know. Pequena. Sometimes the night feels like a faceless, terrible thing with claws. A wild thing with a black, palpitating heart. It rides on our backs, our fear growing with each step. I'm scared, Chico says under his breath. Relax, Polka tells him. But I don't think Chico was talking to Polka or to me. I think he was telling the night he's scared, so maybe she will take pity. Maybe she will leave us alone instead of reaching out, grabbing us, swallowing us whole. We move farther away from the street, scared now of any car that might go by. We can't trust anyone, but especially not now, not at night, when all kinds of darkness awakens. Polka, I say finally, when it's apparent there are no taxis or houses or people or buildings nearby. It's okay. If you don't know where we're going, let's just figure out what to do, okay? Let's find a place to hide, camp out until the sun comes up. Out here? Chico says, his voice immediately filling with panic. I don't know what I thought, Polka says, looking around. His voice is strangled, and I know if I could see his eyes, he would be filling with tears. But he clears his throat. Yeah, we'll hide out somewhere, he says. The softness gone now. The street smart tone back. No way, Chico says. My stomach clenches like a fist at the thought of spending the night out here, too. We'll figure things out in the morning. For now, let's just look for somewhere. But I thought you had this figured out, Polka, Chico says. I thought you knew. Shut up, Polka says. Tell me what you've done to get us this far. Tell me where we have to go next. Do you know? Chico's face is hurt and angry, and I try to reach for his hand, but he suddenly says, Wait, look. Is that a house? Do you see? Over there? I try to make out where he's pointing in the distance. It is, he says again. And I think he's right. There is a small house with fencing all around it. Let's knock. Ask them to let us stay just the night, Chico says. Are you crazy? For all we know, that house belongs to someone we want nothing to do with, Polka says. Who knows who lives there? Or it might be abandoned, I say. If it is, it won't be for long. Someone might come there in the middle of the night, and I don't want to be there if they do. No, look, I think I see some toys out in the yard. That's got to belong to a family. Come on. No, Chico, stop, Polka says. But Chico is running toward it now, and we are hurrying behind him, Polka whispering for him to stop, to wait. But he doesn't. And as we get closer, I notice a dim light coming from the back of the house. Wait, Polka warns again as Chico runs up to the tall chain-link fence, barbed wire along the top. But Chico's already yelling, Bueno, someone home, please. Polka pulls Chico away from the fence, and I think I see the curtain moving slightly at the front window, but it's so dark and so hard to tell. Bueno! Chico calls again, and suddenly a bright white floodlight is flipped on so bright it practically blinds us, and I put my arm out, shielding my eyes. I hear a door open and the harsh voice of a man yelling out to us. Who's there? Who's out there? What do you want? I'm sorry, Chico calls. We crossed the river. We can't find a way to town. Please, senor, can you help us? We have nowhere to stay. The man takes a few steps out, and I see his dark figure against the bright lights. I see the shotgun he carries in his hand, aimed right at us. He has a gun, I whisper to Polka and Chico. But already Polka has his hands up. Please, senor, he yells. We're just 3 kids. Don't shoot, please. We'll leave. We're sorry. Please don't shoot, Chico cries. Please, we need help. Come on, Polka says, grabbing on Chico. Let's go. Keep your hands up. Walk away from here with your hands up. Senor, please, Chico begs. I'm sorry, but I am not a shelter, and I don't care who you say you are. You need to leave right now. Pero, senor, por favor, Chico cries. You don't have to let us inside your house. We'll sleep out here on your patio, please. Get out of here. I can't help you. There's a cemetery up the road where migrants sleep. Go there. Pero, senor, Chico begs, his voice full of desperation. The old man cocks the gun. I'm warning you, kid. Come on, Polka urges. Chico, come on. You're going to get us killed. Polka takes a step back, pulling Chico back with one hand while he keeps the other one in the air. Chico holds onto the fence like a life raft, and Polka yells at him again. I'm serious, Chico, he says, pulling him so hard. Stop, Chico yells, clutching onto the fence tighter. I don't want to sleep in a cemetery. Please. Chico is bigger, stronger than Polka. Nothing Polka does or says makes him let go. I said go, the man yells. Come on, Chiquito, I whisper. Come on, we'll be together, okay? I promise you'll be okay. I'll take care of you. I tell him gently, please, okay? He starts crying, but finally he nods. Finally, he lets go of the fence. The cemetery is about 10 minutes away, the old man says, pointing his gun. You'll see the tombs. That's all I can help you with. And don't come back here again. We walk away, backward, away from the house. After a few minutes, the bright floodlight goes out, and we are enveloped in the night once again. Chico's crying fills the silence as we walk. It's all right, Polka whispers, his voice tinged with irritation, but mostly compassion. I pull him close to me, holding him tighter so that he won't be afraid, but I can feel how his body shakes. I want to go home, he says. We can't do this. I can't do this. Yes, you can, Polka says. Look. Look right there. I think that's the cemetery. You think that's comforting? I'm scared of what it goes, Chico says. There are good spirits, Chiquito, ones that help us, I tell him, making out shadows up ahead, tombs rising out of the darkness. There's bad ones too, he says. And I think of the stories Mommy has told me about spirits, how they can be angry about leaving this life and do bad things to the living, how they roam the streets and the cemetery at night waiting. We don't have a choice, Polka says. Chico sucks his teeth, but he knows Polka's right. Turning back now is impossible. We walk slowly to the cemetery, crickets chirping loudly as we approach the tombs cautiously. I try to open my eyes wider, trying to take in everything, to detect any movement. We try not to make any noise as we come up on the tombs. We walk in, but not too far. I feel like we're being watched. I strain my eyes looking for others, and I think I see figures on the ground. I think I hear whispers rising in the stagnant night air, but I can't be sure. And I don't know who they are. Are they like us? Or are we who they like to hunt? Here, I whisper to Polka and Chico, ducking down behind a tomb. Let's just stay here. Okay, Polka says quickly. Chico is breathing so hard, but he doesn't cry. He holds onto me tighter even as we settle in. He grabs onto me and tucks his body against mine. I get a flash of that baby as it takes my breath away. An electric pulse runs through my breast and I feel for wetness on the bandage I've wrapped tight around my chest, just a small amount of milk. But I swear I hear a heartbeat, and I don't know if it's mine, or Chico's, or that baby's. A sick feeling washes over me, and tears spring to my eyes, but I wipe them away quickly. I won't cry for something I never wanted and can't love. We lie back against the concrete slab, and I look up at the sky. I wonder if my Bruja angel will come if I call for her, if she'll whisk us away from here and deliver us to the border if I wish it hard enough. I stare at the sky, looking for her and the stars. It seems impossible that a sky can be so full of them. It seems impossible that anything beautiful can exist. I hear Chico take small, quivering breaths, trying not to cry. Look at the stars, Chiquito, I whisper. Look at the stars and listen to the crickets, and don't let anything else fill your mind, and stay awake. You can rest, I tell him. I reach for his hand and hold it. He squeezes my hand and looks up. I hear a rustling in the grass, and I tell myself it is just the insects and rodents. I try not to think of Ray, a cockroach who scurries through cracks and defies doors and locks and windows. I imagine his cockroach legs scurrying through the streets of Barrios, climbing onto the bus that led us here, onto the raft that crossed us into Mexico. I imagine him biding his time, waiting to climb up my leg as I lie here, to scurry across my torso, my breast, my neck, to whisper in my ear, I'm here. I found you. You can't run away from me. I wait for him, for Ghost, for the cries of the dead, for La Bruja. The crickets chirp louder. Cuidado, 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 they say. Chico is balled up, as small as possible, tucked next to me on one side, Polka on the other. And together we outwait night. I feel some blood leaking from between my legs and hope it's not enough to soak through the pads I've layered there. Day will come, I whisper, and it will. Because the world doesn't care how much pain you're in or what terrible thing has happened to you. It continues. Morning comes whether you want it or not. Bugs crawl on me as we wait. Mosquitoes and ants bite me. I don't smack them away. Any movement might wake up Chico and Bolga. Instead, when I feel the sting, I think of Ray and let it remind me why I'm running. I close my eyes and dream of bugs entering my ears, my nose, with them crawling down my throat. I wake to the sound of a fly in my ear, and my eyes snap open to bright white and a voice too close. Pequeña. I reach for the knife in my pocket, and with a quick press of a button and a swift click, the blade shoots out within inches of Chico's face. He shrinks back, suddenly wide awake, and he and Bolga both stare at me, at the blade. Sorry, I tell Chico. My hands still clutched tightly around the handles. Others in the cemetery, men, women, children, emerge from behind tombs, begin walking toward the road. Let's go, Polka says, staring at me, at the knife. I put it away and we hurry, following the people staggering out of the cemetery. The warmth of the sun gets hotter with each step. The humidity grows thicker. My skin slicks with sweat as we pass a few little houses. We pass fruit vendors and then small stores and a rundown restaurant. And slowly the world seems to bustle around us as we enter town, as more cars and motor scooters and people with commerce zip past. Look, Polka says, gesturing to a driver leaning against his car, smoking a cigarette. I think that's a taxi. Let's see if he'll take us to the shelter. The tall, lanky man stares as we approach. Pardon, senor? Can you take us to the Belen shelter in Tapachula? Polka says to him. The man looks us over, takes in our clothes, our backpacks. You have to pay in advance. Polka digs into his backpack and takes out an envelope full of money in dollars. Quetzales and pesos. The man stares at him, then laughs and shakes his head as he takes another drag. I look around, wondering if anyone saw. You're lucky I don't steal from kids. Here's some advice. Don't put all that money out in front of anyone, especially those dollars. You're not going to get far making mistakes like that. Bolga nods, looking embarrassed. And like a little kid, I take a deep breath and push away the fear and worry I've kept at bay. I think instead about where I would have slept last night if I hadn't run away. The man gestures for us to get in the car, where it's even hotter than outside and smells of heat and sweat and baby powder. We pull away from the curb as we drive through the streets. More people seem to appear out of nowhere. People on foot, clutching onto their backpacks. People who look lost and dazed. People who woke from the dead. People who look like us.